Hello there and welcome to XP. We're a show that sits down twice a month and talks about games, and particularly one game series, Fable. I'm John and I'm sitting here with my co-host, who may have gotten a little trigger happy last week and excited about some news, Patrick.
Hello.
You can find us across all major podcast services. If we're not on your preference, please let us know. You can also find an enhanced video version of each episode on YouTube by searching for XP Webcast.
If you like our content, be sure to like, subscribe, and comment. I respond to every comment.
If you would like to contact us directly, you can by finding us on Twitter at XP Webcast or by emailing us at xppodcast@gmail.com. So this is what we call a bonus XP episode. Those familiar know that it's kind of where we do a spin-off of our normal thing when we talk about Fable-related content. And we thought that there's been so much going on in the world of Xbox lately, and I mean PlayStation for that matter, that we want to kind of address everything and talk. I mean, like, man, things have just exploded.
Oh, yeah.
It's been pretty crazy the last couple of weeks.
Big news out of nowhere this week.
Yeah, I guess we could start with the catalyst for it all was, Sony had their, I would call it a coming out party or presentation where they pretty well blitzed all of their upcoming content and then surprised everybody by letting pre-orders go live. I guess the retailers probably let them go live, but Sony didn't do anything
they
to stop them.
They kind of said it was going to be the next day, and then I guess they were just like, nah, we're going to do them now.
Yeah, which they had some good stuff there. It looks like their lineup coming up is going to be good. It looks like the system's going to be strong. I know that we're generally more Xbox related as a podcast or as a web show, whatever you want to look at us as. But I do think it's important to look at both sides. We are very, I would say, game platform agnostic.
Yeah.
Play your games where you want to play them.
Yeah,
enjoy them where you do.
Have fun.
Yeah. And I don't disparage anything, but sometimes practices from each side bother me a little bit. Yeah. And I guess we'll get a little bit into that. I mean, just very lightly in this episode. One of the things that got me was the exclusive rights of when they announced Final Fantasy during their show. And it's not that I'm a big Final Fantasy fan, but it was just, I was like, gosh, that's just one more thing that I don't have the option to play if I want to.
Yeah. Sony's been very aggressive, I guess, with how they use their money.
And how do you view that? Because while I don't like the practice of it, I understand it.
Yeah.
I think it's a smart move. I think it makes your platform more appealing.
I understand that. Once again, like John, I'm not really that into the Final Fantasy games, but I do understand that they are a big deal and they have a hardcore fan base and people are getting excited about the new game and now have to buy a PlayStation to play it, at least temporarily. I think it might be time. But as far as the practice, I don't love it because for me, I wish everybody could just buy the console they wanted and then play the games they wanted, or PC, to play it on whatever they wanted to. But from a business perspective, it's smart. I don't blame Sony for doing it.
Well, and to specifically get into one that does hit home for me, I love Spider-Man. I mean, since I was 6-7 years old, I've loved Spider-Man, and so to have that kind of cut off and put in the PlayStation ecosystem, I understand why it is the way that it is.
I mean, that game may have not been made without Sony.
Exactly. So, I mean, I can't begrudge it completely, but it irks me a little bit that I can't just pop on my Xbox and play it there.
Yeah. I mean, that would be great. I'm sure a lot of Xbox fans would love that as well.
Right. But the reason that we bring all of that up is to kind of set the tone for what was going into the Xbox pre-orders that took place a week later. And a little news that came out, I mean, just that small little tidbit they threw.
A little $7.5 billion story.
Yeah. Nothing major, right?
Yep, nope.
No, it's funny to me because after that Sony presentation, I had texted Patrick and I was like, wow, I mean, they're really looking strong. I really think that the momentum keeps shifting back and forth between these two consoles, more so than I thought that it would.
Well, and let's be honest, there for a while, like, Xbox was kind of putting out a lot of stuff on their social media. They were talking a lot. And then it went silent for a while, for the most part.
Well, we had that gap from after their presentation in July until the leak of the Xbox One S, really.
Yeah, Series S.
Series S. Ooh, see? That's going to happen. The Series S.
Yeah, I mean, it was silent in between there.
Yeah, and I'm not entirely sure why, because it seemed like things were still pretty well ready to go.
I don't know. I mean, I was wondering if they were losing confidence or if there was... well, and a lot of it was Halo got delayed.
Yeah, that's true. They probably needed to get away from that a little bit. Because we know the Series S was a thing when they did their July conference, because there's that video of Phil Spencer with the Series S sitting on the bookshelf behind him. Have you seen that?
Not a single person caught.
No, the thing is, though, is I do remember seeing a tweet where someone was analyzing the picture and pointed that out, and even I was like, that's probably just like a Bluetooth speaker.
Mm-hmm.
So
I guess I didn't see that.
Yeah, well, it didn't get a lot of traction. So whoever's out there that did see that, good on you.
Or they knew, or maybe they already knew what it was.
I mean, maybe. Well, no, because they were just kind of picking apart everything in the scene. So I think it was just more of a luck.
Yeah.
Kind of, if I point at everything that doesn't look like something that's instantly identifiable. Yeah, exactly. So we got the Series S announced, which is huge. Obviously I'm nerdy and I want the best tech I can get, so I'm gonna go with the Series X.
Yeah, I mean, it's a $299 entry, which is great for a new generation, but personally, I'm just gonna spend the extra $200.
Yeah, but I always go back to like when I'd first. I'm gonna age myself here. When I'd moved out of my parents' house, it was the PlayStation 2, GameCube, Xbox era, and growing up, we always got consoles at the end of the life cycle. So it was, we'd be like, yeah, we got this cool new console
with 10 games,
and then instantly it was like, but here's all this new next generation tech. So I was always a little bit behind my friends in that. So when I moved out of my parents' house, I was like determined, like I'm gonna get this GameCube the day that it launches, and that kind of thing. Which there's, as you find out, there's detriments to that too, because there's not a huge library when a game console launches. But I remember being, tight for money. I was supporting myself, doing my own thing. I mean, I was barely 18 years old, and an entry point like that, like something that's, almost half price. Of this next generation of consoles being available and still having access to the library of games that are coming out, I can see that being a thing. I can see that being successful.
Also, I mean, they have the All Access, which I believe is $25 a month, and you can get the Series S plus 2 years of Game Pass.
Yeah, and they have that for the S or the X. I think the S is, $25 a month, essentially,
and then the X is $35.
Yeah, which, I mean, especially for somebody who's, college students or even a kid who mows lawns during the summer or something like that. That's huge. That's a big deal. Like, I love that. I actually think that's really, really great. And, I mean, let's not even dance around. I mean, lower income families. It's a cool alternative for people. And I hope that it's understandable to the everyday consumer. I mean, we're nerds. We're deep in it. We know what's going on. But I don't know. I really liked that. And then Sony came out with their presentation and were like, yeah, but our discless version is going to be $399 as compared to the, disc-based version of the Xbox Series X and the PlayStation 5 at $499. So now we're in a generation where we have a $299 system, a $399, and then two $499 systems. So there's a lot of entry points there. Do you think that the $399 price tag is going to have much impact on the $299?
I actually think it could, because it is just as powerful as the standard PS5.
Mm-hmm.
I think that could possibly affect the $299 Xbox Series S. I guess it just depends on each individual consumer, because I can see if your kid really likes Xbox or his friends play on Xbox and you see that $299 price tag, you're not going to look at a PlayStation.
Yeah, and I think that there's that point, and I think there's also like the mom and dad consumer who aren't maybe into video games that will just strictly look at the price and go, okay, well, can he play Fortnite on it and go for the cheapest one that they can get? Because, I mean, realistically, it's not going to do your 4K HD graphics, but...
Ray tracing, though, it'll do.
It'll do the ray tracing, and then, some games it's going to be able to run at that, 120 frames per second, or, and kind of give that experience without having to pay the most. But I'm kind of with you. Like, if it was me and I was kind of limited and I knew I was only going to get one of the systems, I think I might look at that extra $100 and go, well, I can get a bit more power out of that.
Yeah, I mean, it really depends, because once again, your games will be on par, but at the same time, one gripe I have with the digital PS5 that doesn't get talked about very much is there's no price parity. Like with the Xbox digital, you can buy games through whoever.
Right. Yeah.
But with the PS5, you can only buy through the PlayStation storefront.
Right, and that is important to point out, because for those who aren't familiar, basically the difference is if I want to pick up a Nintendo game, or if I want to pick up an Xbox game, like Halo or Mario, I can go to, whatever retail chain, GameStop, Target, Walmart, whatever's familiar for you, and you can buy the code cards for it and download it that way.
They tend to go on sale to the
Amazon
point they'll be really
right?
cheap.
Yeah. And you can do those things, but Sony doesn't sell their codes third party. So if you're going to buy a digital game, you have to buy it through their store on their system.
Yeah, that's your only option, is to buy through their storefront. And that might not be a big deal for a lot of people. They do tend to have really good sales.
Yeah, they do.
On the storefront. But if you're somebody that likes a few more options, that might not be the route to go.
Nope, that's good to bring up. But again, I just wanted to point that out real quick. I think the different price tiers for this generation is good. I mean, those of us who this is our hobby, this is the thing that we've chosen to do with our free time and listen to shows like this. I mean, we're probably going to set aside as much money as we can and get the high-end console. But I think that the more options that are available, then the more people you're allowing to play. And I know it sounds cheesy, but and they didn't market it, I think, as big as maybe they could have, or as long as they should have. But Microsoft had that slogan last year when they were talking about their all accessibility controller of when we all play, we win, or everybody wins.
Yep.
And that really stuck with me. Like, I almost wish they would bring that back, because in terms of the accessibility controller, for sure. But I mean, we're living in kind of a weird world right now. So money's a big thing, and this might allow someone to be able to unwrap an Xbox at Christmas where they might not have been able to before.
And that's where one of the great things, though, about with like the Xbox and all their controllers and everything moving over, is like a family won't have to rebuy controllers
and their games. Like that's one of the things that really astounds me, because I can remember as kids really wishing that I could still again, showing my age. Do you remember that rumor where there was a memory card slot on the back of a Sega Saturn, and people thought you could play your Sega Genesis games on your Sega Saturn? You might have been too young for that.
No, I don't remember that.
Okay. Well, it was a thing, and it was a thing that wasn't true. So essentially, every time your console lifespan ended, that was it. It basically became relegated to a box that either went somewhere in another room, or, in my case, parents probably having to sell them off to get money to buy whatever was coming next. And I don't know. I love that. That's actually one of the big things. Is it's not just your controllers, which the controllers are a big deal, your accessories, but your games all coming with you into the next generation is going to be huge.
Oh yeah. I mean, most games I don't ever go back to, but there are a few, like Fable. We're a Fable podcast that I go back to pretty well every year.
Yep. Yeah. I think I legitimately I play the Lost Chapters probably I would say on average at least every year and a half, if not every year.
Mm-hmm.
Just it's kind of a comfort food.
Oh yeah,
you know what I mean? Like it's a comfort game, so to speak. But that's where the consoles are. We danced around it a little bit earlier, but I don't want to take up too much time for this episode. So let's get into the behemoth announcement that we got. Coincidentally, right? I'm pretty sure it was a coincidence. It had nothing to do with pre-orders going on sale
happened,
on,
they're like,
the next
let's
day.
go ahead and talk about it the day before.
Yeah. Microsoft for $7.5 billion has purchased Bethesda.
Yeah. Saw that coming.
Oh, yeah, from a mile away.
Yeah.
Nope, not at all.
No.
That was a bomb.
No, that was something that usually fanboys would say, and I would just laugh at them, and now I'm not going to laugh as much anymore.
Well, and to kind of loop back to what I had started to say earlier, but got completely sidetracked, was when Patrick and I were texting after the Sony conference, I was like, wow, Sony has all this momentum. I would love to see, before I go and I try to pre-order, which I was not successful at, but before I try to pre-order my Xbox, I wish Microsoft or Xbox, however you want to, look at the brand and name it, would announce something that is like a mic drop moment.
Yeah.
I kept waiting on that one big thing, because even going into the July event, we knew Halo was coming. Let's be honest. We knew Fable was coming, right?
I mean, and that's how they ended the show.
There wasn't anything that I felt I came out of that conference going, I had no idea. Yeah. That's amazing. I mean, Avowed looked cool. That was kind of a surprise.
Yeah, that was a big surprise. I think we both came out interested in the gunk that came out of nowhere, but there was nothing that was just like, oh man.
Yeah, like, wow, that just completely changed the landscape. Well, this was it.
Yeah, that was it. Yeah.
This was the moment that I think I've been waiting for to really get my confidence behind what they're doing. So I just, it was huge. Before I guess we talk about the ramifications for it and our views on it, do you want to run down the studios and kind of what they're known for? That's the thing. What is it, 7 studios?
I have 8 listed here. I mean, one of them is a mobile, but then again, there can be multiple studios within that. But I think overall that would be production on about 7 bigger games.
You want to run them down?
Yeah. With 4 studios, we got, let's just start with Bethesda Game Studios, who are, I think mostly they're working on Starfield at this point, but they're kind of known for the Elder Scrolls also, and the Fallout series.
Yeah, which is huge. Huge.
Yeah, those are huge IPs that they acquired there.
Yeah, why don't we'll run them all down and then we'll talk a little bit about them.
Yeah. We got id Software, ID, whatever you want to call it, with Doom, Rage, which did pretty well recently, Quake, which is
forgotten about Rage,
dormant at this point.
Yeah.
And then also, I mean, it might be worth including, I don't know, they were pretty heavy in some VR tech for many years there.
I've wondered about that.
Yeah.
I mean, we've had there was a Fallout and a Skyrim VR, wasn't there?
Yeah. I mean, they've been Doom has been in VR. They made that its own standalone game.
Okay.
So, I mean, that might be another thing if Xbox does look to get into VR, which they've really shown no interest over the last few years. But if they were, Wolfenstein had a VR game too.
Yeah. Be a quick drop.
It'd be a quick, easy studio that they could bring into play.
I wonder if they'd incorporate that into Game Pass.
That would be awesome.
Yeah, that would make me more inclined to go out and get a headset.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
Then you have Arcane, who is making Prey. Deathloop is their current project, which... Has Sony ever wanted to see something that they have exclusive fail more than that game at this point?
Do they want it to fail, though? Because it's still a timed exclusive.
It's timed exclusive, but I guess maybe not fail, but you got to imagine they're not as enthusiastic as they were. Because if it comes out and it does well and then the sequel doesn't come to PlayStation at this point...
At the same time, there's always putting the spin on it in the beginning of you can only get this on PlayStation. Hey, competition's making games for us. We're so cool.
And whenever it comes out, it'll be Game Pass day one. But then also they've done a few entries in the Dishonored series, which a lot of people are big fans of.
Oh, yep. I forgot that was the same studio.
We got Tango Gameworks, which Phil has talked for years about getting a Japanese game studio, and he finally acquired one. Through a way I didn't expect him to. They're known for The Evil Within, and then also another PlayStation timed exclusive. They got Ghostwire Tokyo, which looked pretty interesting.
Yeah. There was a lot of buzz around that. The last E3 technically, but what was E3 2019?
Yeah, essentially.
Yeah. Which, that is one thing that Microsoft has come out and definitively said, is that they are going to honor those contracts for those games to be timed exclusive. So there's not going to be any shuffling around concerning those.
You have Zenimax Online, who makes the Elder Scrolls Online game and currently an unannounced IP in the project, in the process.
Yeah. Sorry, I keep wanting to comment on these games, but we'll talk about them afterward. Keep going, Patrick.
And then Machine Gun Games, which to my knowledge is just known for the Wolfenstein series. I don't know that they've made any other games. We got Alpha Dog, who mostly makes mobile games for Bethesda, and I guess we can just knock them out here real quick, because in my head I was like, they're not gonna probably be doing mobile games, but then I remembered that Bethesda's gonna run somewhat independently.
Yeah.
So I think that they'll continue making mobile games.
So did they do the Elder Scrolls Blades, I'm assuming?
I'm not 100% sure.
Okay, I didn't play it myself, but I know that some people liked it, but it didn't make a lot of noise.
Yeah. And then, which this one intrigues me surprisingly the most. I guess it's not the one I'm excited about, but it intrigues me. They have a newer studio announced last year called Roundhouse. I'm blanking on the name of their previous studio, but they did do a decent amount of online focus games. But they have an unannounced IP, and I'm wondering, is this a AA? Is this a AAA? Like,
what's it gonna be?
Yeah, I mean, with a lot of this other stuff, you have a bit of an idea of what they're capable of or what kind of games they make, but that one is a bit of a surprise, so I'll be interested whenever they make an announcement.
Yeah, that'd be good. Kind of something unexpected.
Yeah.
So, I mean, like, just running them down real quick. I mean, Elder Scrolls and Fallout. Those are two of the biggest game franchises going, since the last generation, I would say. Well, no, from the 360 PlayStation 3 era. Yeah. They've been huge franchises. Yeah. So, I mean, that's a big get in its own. I mean, even if they were just adding those two licenses to their first party lineup.
Yeah, those are huge gets.
Yeah. But then, I mean, Doom's pedigree goes back, to the early 90s, mid-90s. I mean, that's huge, just from a name recognition point of view.
I don't know if they have any plans for it, but, I mean, Quake has its fan base, that's for sure.
It does, and it also used to have a pretty heavy Windows kind of base to it, too. Yeah. So it's got those PC roots that really, I think if they were to reinvent that, could get not me personally, because I didn't play it, but I know there's a, section of game... or gamers, I guess I should say, that would be thrilled for something like that.
I mean, let's put it this way. If it continues to pop up to where you hear that name multiple times a year, and it's been dormant for a long time, I mean, there's a fan base that would just go nuts.
Yep.
And I think it's worth pursuing myself.
And that's the thing is they're getting a lot of pedigree games with this. Like, Wolfenstein's been around forever. And while their last game wasn't as well received as the ones that preceded it, I mean, they still have a great track record, out of their last few games that have just been a really strong but overlooked shooter, is my understanding.
And then with Tango Gameworks, they bring some things to the table that, as far as Xbox-owned studios, doesn't really have, because they go a little horror-ish in a way with The Evil Within.
Yeah.
Definitely a bit darker.
Sure.
I mean, I know that they have that game by Team Bloober, The Medium, coming out, but that's not an owned studio as far as we know right now. But that's definitely an area where they've been lacking compared to PlayStation, I would say.
Oh, for sure. Well, and PlayStation has those ties where they get certain recognition from studios. Because working with like Capcom and Konami and all that with Silent Hill and that kind of thing, it's I think that's the biggest thing about this is in one fell swoop, they've rounded out their lineup.
Yeah, I mean, as a lot of people have been saying, they've become the home for Western RPGs. And obviously picked up a studio that does a bit darker things that we're not used to.
Yeah.
I mean, they've really rounded this out because for years, I mean, they were, Xbox, all they have is shooters. Okay, well, now they have shooters and racers. And then now it's like, they're also the home of Western RPGs, and nobody's close. Like who would be second at this point?
That's the thing. I'd
EA
actually
with
have to
BioWare?
sit and think about it.
And that's not even going good right now.
Well, and let's not let's not look past that. They also made the announcement that EA Play is coming to Game Pass.
Yeah.
So, I mean, no, you don't get those games day and date, but you just got access to that library.
The Star Wars games, pretty much a year out is when that stuff goes on there. You get the year-old sports games.
Yeah, and then you have great games like Mass Effect and Dragon Age, and I mean, it's incredible. It's incredible. It's I would say over the course of 2 weeks, it's almost like the landscape changed.
Yeah, I mean, you can't say, I don't have anything to play if you have Game Pass, because then it's just like, maybe you don't like games that much anymore.
Right. Well, I feel like it's almost, if it did anything for me, it would almost cause me that game paralysis where it's like, I don't know what to play, and then I just turn on The Office instead.
Yeah,
you know?
Because, I mean, it's going to get a little overwhelming in there when you start looking.
Yeah, but eventually once the dust starts to settle, I mean, but that service is just, it's incredible.
Yeah.
But no, I mean, like I'm anxious to see what they do with this, and I don't think we can have this conversation with talking about, as Patrick and I had kind of said earlier, we are console agnostic. Play where you want to play, enjoy where you want to enjoy. But one of the conversations we had a very long back and forth on the other day was, if you are Microsoft, after paying $7.5 billion for this acquisition, do you keep those games exclusive and just let what was already going to be on other systems be on other systems? Or do you keep publishing games on other systems, be it... I mean, obviously, I don't think there's a chance at all that these games aren't coming to PC.
Yeah, they're absolutely. I mean, I think really every Xbox Game Studios game is coming to PC.
It seems to be a two-front, war they're waging from that aspect. And then also xCloud, so it's kind of, I guess, a three-front war. But there's been a lot of speculation on, since we do have these timed exclusives that are going to go to PlayStation 5, will they continue to publish games on PlayStation 5 after the fact? And at $7.5 billion, you do have to question, is that going to be a thing? Because we've seen this already with Minecraft.
Yeah, and even, more surprisingly, Minecraft Dungeons.
Yes. Oh, yeah, that's true. Yeah, because that was after the fact. That's a different IP technically.
Yeah, and it was a game that came out after the acquisition.
Yes. So, I mean, what do you think, Patrick? First, what's your stance on if they should, actually, what's your stance on if you care if they did, and then what do you think they should do?
So basically, as long as I have Game Pass, I'm good, and they're on their day one. I'm good. I feel like I gain nothing by them being on PlayStation, so it wouldn't bother me. But if we're going to talk business, not a chance in hell I put that stuff on PlayStation.
Okay.
Not a chance. And you hear the arguments, they paid a lot of money, so why, you want to recoup it, so you put it on PlayStation. But, yeah, you might make more money here and there, but that, along with what they already have coming, I think that they make more money in the long run converting people over to Xbox or getting PC users to also invest in Game Pass and making that $10, $15 a month for ever.
Yeah, because once you get in and see what that ecosystem is like,
you're gonna probably stay.
Yeah, I kind of waffle around on both sides of it personally. When I first read this announcement, I was like, oh, that's cool. And my instant reaction was, I don't want these games on PlayStation. After, and again, precursoring, I don't care where you play your games. I want everybody to enjoy playing their games. But that was my instant reaction, and I think it was only out of the reaction of Sony wrapping so many exclusives into their launch that we've known so far. And kind of the resentment of having people say, well, there's nothing to play on Xbox. But then I instantly started to pull back and go, well, no, again, it doesn't hurt me if they're playing games on their system. Why would I care?
Yeah.
It doesn't. I don't make more money off of it. I don't have any, I don't have any reason to not want someone to play games in whatever ecosystem they choose. So would it bother me if they decide to go ahead and publish games there? No, not at all. Not even a little bit. Do I think that it will make the Xbox platform more appealing if they don't? Yes.
Oh, absolutely.
Financially, do I think it's a good decision one way or the other? I think if it were me, I think the way to do it would be, personally, you do your Game Pass games, day and date, day one. You got Game Pass, here it is, you got it. And then maybe do a year, maybe do 2 years before you release those systems on PlayStation 5. Or not systems, but games on PlayStation 5. And then that way, if those people want to play it on PlayStation 5, then you're making, $60, $70 a pop.
I guess my thing is, though, does that drive people to Game Pass then if they know they have to wait a year or two, and then I can get it when all the bugs are worked out and different things?
Oh, that's actually a really good point.
It's a fair point because, well, with Bethesda Game Studios, there's going to be bugs.
Yes. No, I mean...
Features,
That's yes, features. That's a good point. Because the thing is I think that the people who are the hardcore about these games will find a way to play them, regardless of what it is.
Yeah.
There are people who Elder Scrolls that's their Legend of Zelda, that's their Halo. In terms of
the game they've bought in 5 times now.
Their Fable. It's. And I think those people will find a way to play it regardless. So, I guess the question would be, and it's kind of going to be. They've already said that it's going to be on a game-by-game basis, which I think most people interpreted that as, well, it's going to be on PC, and then maybe some of the smaller games that they do might make their way over to Switch.
Switch, okay. I thought you were going to say PlayStation. I was like, actually, if anything, I was thinking the opposite if they were going to put it on PlayStation.
Yeah.
But yeah.
So,
the bigger games and then the smaller games stay exclusive.
Right. But who knows? That's the thing. It's kind of hard to say at this point. It's going to be really interesting, but I do feel like the landscape changed. This was the mic drop moment that I was waiting on.
You look ahead, because, a lot of these games that we know about are a bit far out as far as, Starfield.
Yes.
And then,
and that's the one that they're putting most of their effort behind right now.
But, there's no real time frame, but you got to imagine that's coming out within the next 3 years.
I would think so, yeah.
Yeah, and during that time, the next 2 to 5 years, you're going to be getting Fable, possibly the new In Exile AAA RPG. It seems like Avowed's going to be out around that time frame also. I think when they hit that point where they're really up and running like that, 4 or 5 years from now, I'd be shocked if Game Pass had under 50 subscribers. If they or 50 million.
I hope they have more than 50
they went from 10 to 15
10
since
to 15
April.
in the last 6 months, yeah.
Yeah, and I'd be surprised, in all honesty, if they make these games exclusive, these Bethesda games, if they weren't up to 50 million subscribers.
We'll see. That could definitely be like the launch point, I think, to get them to that kind of number. Just because...
Oh, and we don't even know what the initiative's making at this point.
Right. Exactly.
We have an idea. I think we know, but we don't know.
Right. Well, even if we know the property, we don't necessarily know what shape or form that's going to take.
Yep.
The thing is, when they hit that stride, once they hit that 3 or 4 years in, which is normally where your consoles really... because these console generations have gotten a bit longer with the last two, whereas they used to be 5 years. You knew almost... like clockwork that Nintendo was going to give you a new system every 5 years.
Yep.
Sony was going to do that for a while. And then it was even shorter with the original Xbox. But then when we hit the 360 PS3, that went from, 2005-ish to 2013.
Yeah.
And then this one started in 2013, and this year is, while they're not done making games for the system, it is technically wrapping up this generation in 2020. So you're talking 7 years. Yeah. So that 4-year mark is kind of your middle range where they really start hitting their strides. Yeah. And if they can hit the right cadence, I mean, we were talking a little bit earlier about, there's right now Microsoft is technically sitting on 24-ish studios. Not all of those are producing games. Sometimes they're just used for different assets or satellite studios to do just specific things concerning helping out other games. But if you whittle that number down to, let's just round it at 20, you're looking at 20 studios that Microsoft could put on a 4-year cycle if they wanted to and still release 5 exclusive games a year. So those, days of Microsoft not having exclusives are about to end, at least if they manage this all correctly, which that's a lot to manage, but it seems feasible.
Yeah. Bethesda's had a bit of a rough patch lately with some of their games, but at the same time, I mean, you heard what we said. These are games that people know.
Yep, and that's important.
I mean, I think if there's a ship to turn around, not that they've really fallen on their face, because I wouldn't go that far at all, but they've had a bit of a rough patch.
Fallout 76 was a pretty good kick in the gut.
Yeah, like in many, really all aspects, I would say, other than maybe the Wastelanders update, which I would say that
it's probably their biggest, what would be considered a bomb to date. Now that's changed in the time since it launched, but at launch, they really kind of they messed up there. That
hurt them really bad. But these are names people know. If Starfield comes out and it looks great, people are gonna be right back with them.
Exactly. They're not in a position where they can't bounce back. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. I mean, like I honestly, Skyrim was my first Elder Scrolls game. I didn't bother with Oblivion. I think I loaded it up in my 360 at the time. I ran in one direction and hit nothing for like 15 to 20 minutes, which apparently was about it. I just ran in the wrong direction. Yeah. But I was just like, this is not for me, and I think I started playing Assassin's Creed or something like that, something that was instantly in on the action. But Skyrim was one that, I lost track of how many hours I put into it. So it's one that I'm actively anticipating.
I think I did like 2% of the story and put like 100 hours or 80 hours into that game or something, because I'd be like, all right, you're going to climb that hill, you're going to do that part of the story, you're going to do cave.
Yep.
Cave.
Yeah. Makes you a squirrel.
Yeah, I mean, how many times would someone ask you to, hey, can you retrieve this item for me? You mean this one that I have?
But, I mean, that, and then, I mean, you got Fallout, which, Fallout 4 was, it's funny, I think the narrative on that game has changed. It actually, when it launched, people were like, yeah, and then a little bit out from it, they were like, yeah, it's just kind of more
Didn't have as much
Fallout.
Staying power as 3, and oddly enough, New Vegas.
Yeah.
I liked it. I thought it made a lot of improvements, but at the same time, kind of like a lot of Bethesda games, you're a bit like, why did you design it like that?
Yeah. Well, and it was that thing where I think people really wanted that leap in graphics. Yeah. And because their games are so big, it makes it hard to make a leap like that. But I think their intention behind it wasn't necessarily to make a huge leap. I think it was to give you kind of like, oh, you like burritos? Well, here's 50 more burritos.
Yeah.
Which isn't a bad thing, but I do think that
that's why it reviewed and sold like 15 million copies.
Yeah.
But they did say with Starfield, I mean, this is the largest engine overhaul they've done.
Yep.
So we'll see how that plays out.
And again, let's not forget that back catalog that was previously all on, Xbox One and I would assume 360 over time.
Yeah.
Is all going to be coming to Game Pass too.
Yeah. Like, I mean, I gotta imagine a lot of these games that aren't backward compatible will manage to become backward compatible. Like, I don't know, is Oblivion?
I don't know. I was just wondering that myself.
If it isn't, I bet you it will be.
Yep. Yeah. So, I mean, like, again, this was the mic drop moment, I think, as an Xbox fan. I mean, to sum it up, because we've actually gone longer than we normally go for our shows, this next generation, from regardless of where you're going to play your games, if you're going to play them on Xbox or if you're going to play them on PS5, I mean, to me, the outlook of the generation looks tremendously better than it did for the PS4 and Xbox One era. I mean, let's be honest, it looks tremendously better for the Xbox side of things, but I think even PlayStation looks stronger this time around.
Oh, yeah. I'll be honest, with the Xbox One, the only reason why I bought it was to play Fable Legends.
Yeah, and then we didn't even get it.
Oh, I sank several hundred hours into it, but I didn't get to keep it.
Right.
So that's a story for
Can't
another day.
boot it up now.
No. Well, I can. It just won't connect to a server.
Well, okay, you get a loading screen.
Yeah, basically. And some great music.
Yeah.
But I'll be honest, I was pretty down on Xbox for many years. Phil made a lot of good decisions early on. I thought, like removing the Kinect, which made it easier to buy.
Yes.
And then it seemed like it went through many years where it's like, I don't know what they're doing. Then they announced Game Pass, and I gave it a shot, and I'm like, this isn't great.
Well, I mean, and that's a whole other show we could do, but I mean, just to quickly sum it up, it was kind of, the Phil Spencer era started with, hey, backwards compatible games.
Yeah.
Which was a big deal, but it's not a game changer necessarily,
Yeah.
I think, for most people. I think people like to have access to their catalog. Yeah. I love to have access to my back catalog. But it's not the reason necessarily I'm going to stay with the console.
The only thing I'm going to add just briefly to that earlier point is I remember when you sent me a text that they were announcing first-party games were going to launch on their day one. Yep. I think I responded, I'm like, they're making sense now.
Yep.
They're making sense. Like, that's kind of when I would say I got back on board, and with this Bethesda acquisition and then them... An important note is, like, these studios they acquired, a lot of them have moved to different offices. They continue to grow. They're not just buying them, they're getting bigger.
Yeah, and they seem to be giving them space, which is something they have never had until recently.
Yeah.
I mean, we talk about that all the time. I mean, we're a Fable show. We talk about how Lionhead, in some aspects, almost became suffocated by Microsoft to the point that they didn't get to make their own visions in a lot of instances. It sounds like Bethesda specifically is going to run almost as it's still independent.
Yeah.
Because they don't want to change the culture of these games. But I think it's even more than that. I mean, when you talk about Playground Games and what they're doing with Fable, it sounds like it's pretty hands-off.
Yeah.
Which, of course, some guidance is always going to be needed. You need to fit the vision of the platform that you're on, that you're owned by, but at the same time, you still need that creative room to put your own spin on things.
I got a question with... because Fable likely is 2 to 3 years out, does this acquisition of Bethesda, because you'd always hear those, we'll make Fable like Elder Scrolls or different things like that. Would you say that it gives you more confidence that Fable will be Fable to stand out and be different?
So I see your point, but I'm going to say no. And only because I feel like Playground was given the keys to Albion, so to speak, that they must have pitched it and had an idea for a Fable game that lined up with, Microsoft's being happy with whatever. I don't think it changes their course in any capacity. I think the game that we're going to get is probably the game that they want to present. Yeah. And I don't see that changing. Yeah. Do you?
I would say I waver a bit back and forth, but then again, to be fair, I don't know what they were letting them make in the first place.
Exactly.
I guess it gives me a little bit more confidence that if they maybe were going that route a little bit, that it might be more Fable-ish just to stand out if that was happening.
Now that could be. I could see that.
Because if it was a bit...
Let's lean into it a little bit harder.
Yeah, which... Based on that trailer, there's no reason for me to think this, but if it was a bit more serious and then they were like, well, with Bethesda, we got all these serious things already.
Let's make this a little something different so it stands out. Yeah. No, that I can see.
But
I don't feel like that's pressure coming from anywhere to make it something that it wasn't going to be. I think that's just embellishing certain parts of it to accomplish what they want to accomplish. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Oh, that's a really good point. But yeah, this is huge. It's... the outlook is good for games this generation. I think I'm anticipating it more than I have in past generations.
Oh,
too.
Absolutely. I mean, I can't think of a bigger acquisition in gaming as far as like pretty well buying out a whole publisher than this one. I mean,
well, and you know what? I'll be real honest. I don't really want to see more of that. I don't want to see Ubisoft. I mean, like even by Microsoft. I don't want to see Ubisoft get snatched up by them. I don't want to, I don't think it would ever happen. But I don't want to see EA get purchased by anybody. Yeah. I think this was kind of a need.
Yeah.
In Microsoft's camp in their library of games. But, like individual studio buys, I think I'm more comfortable with.
I think I'd like to see it more with maybe some of the smaller studios that have talent but need help. And
that's what I mean,
Maybe some of the ones like we're both fans of Double Fine, where their games have reviewed well, but they haven't always necessarily sold the best.
Right, yeah. They were always it was a little bit harder to keep the funds coming.
In the case of Obsidian, I mean, they may have rescued that studio, and it may pay off. It's looking like it's going to pay off big time. I don't know what they paid for it. They didn't give information on all their studios, but it looks like it's going to pay off big time.
And that's what I mean, like single studio acquisitions, I think I'm good with. I don't know that I want to see another big umbrella studio get bought or publisher, however,
Yeah.
But all right, we've gone way past our normal time, so let's go ahead and wrap this up. If you want to continue to talk to us about this, we'll give you the details here in just a second about how you can do that. Because, I mean, I probably could have kept going.
I could probably go another hour.
Yeah, we try to be respectful of your time.
I mean, we haven't really talked to any about the studios they already have.
And that's the thing. Yeah, so, Patrick, let's go ahead and close up shop for today.
Let us know if you want that episode. Before we go, we'd like to give a thanks to those who helped contribute to the show. Zero XP logo was provided by Jameson Johns. You can find him at behance.net/Jameson Johns. Music by Odd Reference. You can find him at facebook.com/odd.reference. You can find us on Twitter at 0xpwebcast, or feel free to email us at 0xppodcast@gmail.com. If you're on YouTube, be sure to like, subscribe, and comment. I respond to all of them. You can always find us on most major podcast websites. If we're not on one of the ones that you listen to, let us know.
And again, thank you to those who have inspired us to do this show. Thank you, Dean. Thank you, Charlie. Thank you, Ted. Thank you, Damien. Thank you, Mike. And thank you, Xbox Pope. And until next time, as always, just stay safe out there. Bye-bye. Bye-bye-bye.
Still can't believe they bought Bethesda.
Bye-bye.